full knowledge, giving them full knowledge to make a proper choice. Strategy, I think, is biased in a most brutal way. A fake choice. When after long years of discipline and fantasizing about the transgressive pleasures of the outside English world, the adolescent Amish are all of a sudden, unprepared, thrown into this world, they of course cannot but indulge in extreme transgressive behavior, test it all, throw themselves fully into a life of sex, drugs and drinking. And since in such a life, for such a life they lack any inherent limitation or regulation, this situation inexorably backlashes and generates unbearable anxiety. It is thus a safe bet that after a couple of years they will return into the seclusion of their community. No wonder that more than 90% of the offspring does exactly this. And my obvious point is this not how our academic freedoms function today? That it's kind of academic Rumspringa, no? We are allowed to go out a little bit so that it's all the more safer that we will come back. How does then this coming back function? I mean, what is the proper attitude of somebody who, I mean, that's the great art of many progressive intellectuals today, of coming back without appearing to come back, pretending to be even more radical. Well, I will focus on one example, and I appreciate the guy highly, personally. He's not an idiot. But I think that I found in his work a perfect formulation for this kind of being co-opted in the very form of transgression. I'm talking about the guy who did a lot to develop Levinasian political ethics, Simon Critchley. Here is a long quote. Listen to it. It's very interesting. From his recent text, I don't even know, I got it through email if it's already published, The Problem of Hegemony. Quote, we inhabit states. Now, it is arguable that the state is a limitation on human existence and we would be better off without it. Such is perhaps the eternal temptation of anarchism, and we will come back to anarchism. However, it seems to me that we cannot hope at this point in history to attain a withering away of the state either through anarcho-syndicalism or revolutionary proletarian practice, or through the agency of the party, for example. If class positions are not simplifying, but on the contrary becoming more complex through processes of dislocation, if the revolution is no longer conceivable in Marxist manner, then that means that for good or ill, let's say for ill, we are stuck with state just as we are stuck with capitalism. The question becomes, what should our political strategy be with regard to the state? In a period when the revolutionary subject has decidedly broken down and the political project of a disappearance of the state is not coherent other than as a beautifully seductive fantasy, politics has to be conceived at a distance from the state. Or better, politics is the praxis of taking up distance with regard to the state, working independently of the state, working in a situation. Perhaps it is at this intensely situational, local level that the atomizing force of capitalist globalization is to be met, contested and resisted. That is, listen carefully now, it is not to be resisted by constructing a global anti-globalization movement that at its worst is little more than a highly colorful critical echo of the globalization it contests. It is rather to be resisted by occupying and controlling the terrain upon which one stands, where one lives, works, acts and thinks. This needn't involve millions of people. It needn't even involve thousands. It could involve just a few at first. It could be what Yulia Kristeva has recently called the domain of intimate revolt. That is, politics begins right here, locally, practically, specifically, around a concrete issue and not by running off to protest at some meeting of the G8. You shouldn't meet your enemy on their ground, but on your own, on the ground that you have made your own. Also, that's not a joke, that's how it concludes this passage. Also, think of the money and time you save on travel. That's the position. So for this guy, true democracy is, quote again, a short one now, enacted or even simply acted, practically locally, at a distance from the state. It calls the state into question. It calls the established order to account, not in order to do away with the state, desirable though that might well be in some utopian sense, but in order to better or attenuate its malicious effects. End of quote. Now, I hope you were able to follow the line. This is, for me, the politics that I would like to avoid. This politics of, today let's abandon big utopian projects, the state is out there to stay, so we should resist. Resistance, of course, means you know in advance you will not make a big difference. You resist locally, at its utmost, you resist intimately, intimate revolt, and I think there is nothing that those in power today like more than intimate revolts, you know. But nonetheless, did you notice how ambiguous Critchley's position is? The main ambiguity resides in a strange non sequitur that it contains. Did you follow the logic here? My point is simply, if the state, as he emphasizes, if the state is here to stay, if it is impossible to abolish the state and capitalism, as he adds, sorry, but if we accept his premise, why then the conclusion that we should act with a distance towards the state? Sorry, but honestly, if I have to choose between this position and Tony Blair's third way, sorry, I'm for the third way. Because you know what I mean? If you, and I don't, if you accept the position, end of utopias, that's the world we live in. State, global capitalism is our destiny. Isn't it more honestly to say, then let's fully accept this space and play politics, do within it what we can. Again, do not misunderstand me, I don't think this. But my point is, if he says the state is here to stay, why then this move? Isn't it strange? A, the state is here to stay, we cannot get rid of it. B, we should have nothing to do with it, we should stay at a distance. Why? I think that the position is deeply, objectively, not a subjective psychological term, hypocritical. It's very nice to have somebody for you to do the dirty work of power, and you can have this comfortable, beautiful sole position of intimately revolting, criticizing, and so on and so on. There is another ambiguity here, if you noticed it. The second ambiguity. When he says the state is here to stay, what does he mean? And I think that his ambiguity here is crucial, because it's structurally necessary. It's impossible for this position to choose, to make a clear choice. Does he mean, when he says the state is here to stay, does he mean this as a specific claim about today's historico-political situation? Today, the state is here to stay. That is to say, we live in a non-revolutionary epoch. Even with this I don't agree, but let us say. So, within our prospects of our immediate action, the state is here to stay? Or does he mean, in the worst deconstructionist manner, this kind of, how should I call it, immediate ontological grounding of totalitarianism? You know, totalitarianism is the concept as of metaphysics